Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another Sims info/thoughts video, and this one is going to strictly focus on SimGuru Q&A from SimGuru Grant, and we got a few different topics, including occults, apartments, elders, and more. So let's get right into this, starting with apartments. So Amobe asks, pining for custom-built apartments, how about you? And Grant says, we're aware. So I know a lot of people were really hoping for apartments to be in Del Sol Valley with Get Famous. Sadly, that did not happen. Yeah, even though I like Get Famous way more than I thought I was going to, I really enjoyed Get Famous, but I still can't deny Del Sol Valley. I expected more. It's like, you thought Brindleton Bay was small? Think again. So hopefully they will put more apartments in future worlds, and if we did actually get to custom build our own apartments like in The Sims 2, then that would be even better. So next up is some discussion in regards to occults. So the first tweet comes from Arcardo, and they say, kinda disappointing, it's been 2 years since you last released an occult. I love Sims 4 otherwise, but the lack of occults in this version has been so extremely disappointing as a simmer who used to only play with occults. It saddens me. And Grant says, we are always trying to appeal to lots of different groups. We're trying to please a lot of folks, so hold tight, stay tuned. We aren't going anywhere. So there you go, occults game pack confirmed. Well, no, not really, but yeah. I mean, if The Sims 4 has at least 3 years of life left, I can't imagine there not being any occults whatsoever within those 3 years. There's gotta be at least a couple more that they plan on bringing to the game. Personally, I'd really love to see witches next, and I'd also really like fairies, robots, and mermaids. And speaking of witches, CC. asks, are witches going to be a life state or a skill if you ever make them? And Grant says, if we make them, I'd imagine they'd be somewhat similar to vampires, generally speaking, but that's a big if. First of all, what? That shouldn't be an if, it should be a when, but hopefully that's just because Grant's under a non-disclosure agreement and cannot confirm things for sure unless it's officially announced. So, yeah, I mean, witches are in pretty high demand. I think they're the most popular requested occults at the moment, especially like they did win that poll that they did a while back around the time Seasons came out, where they had those it was like a tournament bracket of sorts actually, and I do remember it came down to witches versus mermaids, and the witches ended up winning. So yeah, I think witches will come eventually, and I do hope that it will be in the form of a game pack, because Vampires is my favorite game pack at the moment, and I just think it was so well done. The vampires, in my opinion, just blow the previous iterations of vampires in The Sims out of the water. So if they could do that for witches, then I'm sure I'll like them even more than vampires. Especially since with witches, you can blend them into sort of like realistic settings fairly easily depending on what you do. Although you can sort of do that with vampires as well, especially if you do manage to get them that perk where they can actually go out in the sunlight without getting burned. But with witches, I think it's a little bit easier to do that since witches don't inherently have that kind of flaw. And just like how not all vampires have to look like Dracula, not all witches need to be in short dresses and pointy hats. So yeah, I definitely would use witches more in my gameplay if they were around. In The Sims 3, I think next to aliens, witches were my most used occult, and I mean, of course, you can't really talk about witches without bringing up Making Magic from The Sims 1, because that is such a beloved expansion pack, and even though at the time I wasn't really into witches because my tastes were different back then, I did end up loving it later, and yeah, it's just such a charming expansion pack. I really hope that with a witches game pack they could do a very focused sort of thing that would be very similar to Making Magic in that sense, where it's like this whole lifestyle. And as a side note, I'd really love to see the mini golf and amusement park rides return from that expansion pack as well. It doesn't need to come with witches again, but yeah, that was just really fun stuff to do, even if you weren't playing as a witch or a wizard. You could just go on date nights for those sorts of things, and it was really cute. And we got one last question regarding Occults, and that's on the subject of hybrids. So Last Weasley Rose asks, I'm hoping any potential witches would have the ability to have vampire hybrid babies, or also be a vampire, since I just experienced a bugged alien abduction vampire baby and had to send it to the home world to rescue my save game. Wow, I did not know that could happen. But Grant responds by saying, we generally don't do hybrids. Far more trouble than they are worth. I don't believe we did them on TS3 either. I think with the aliens in The Sims 3, you could mix and match aliens with other hybrids, but not with any of the other ones. Like with witches, werewolves, fairies, you couldn't do that with any of those. It was just that aliens were a bit of a special case. But yeah, that's a little too bad. I miss hybrids a little bit. I thought I would miss them more, but yeah, it would be kind of cool, like in The Sims 2, how I had a werewolf servo. So it was like a servo in appearance, but I think it had like a yellow eye, and it had little fangs sticking out, and it would howl at the moon, but it'd have this robotic noise. It was one of the coolest things ever. But yeah, it's not something I absolutely need in The Sims, but it was definitely just like a super quirky thing if you really wanted to go through the extended process of getting one. Alright, so let's move on to elders. So Electric Magui says, please make more clothes for the elders. And Grant says, elders are tough. They are very popular with a very small group of players. We should do more, but there are so many competing priorities. And yeah, definitely not just make more clothes, more gameplay that suits them as well. I think elders are the most neglected group in terms of age groups in the game right now, especially since kids and teenagers did get some attention with previous packs like Kids Room Stuff and Parenthood. So I think the elders really need some time to shine, because I mean, there isn't really that much uniqueness to them other than they're like a little hunched over and just look a bit older. But yeah, we need to have some stuff that really makes them stand out more. Like, what about the canes and those walk styles from The Sims 3? Or having some activities that are not necessarily limited to elders, but is stuff that elders would definitely do, like bingo or sewing or that sort of stuff. I pretty much never play with elders, and that's kind of sad. I think I would play with elders if I did have aging on, because at that point it would be almost like, oh, okay, it's the last stage of their life, there's not really much left for them to do, so it's just like, in a very blunt sense, just waiting for them to just pass on. So yeah, I wish they could be more than that. I feel like, I mean, even in The Sims 3, though they did get some of those features and generations, I still feel like it wasn't enough. They can definitely do more with elders, and I do hope that one day the producers can be convinced that elders really do need more attention, and maybe they could change our minds if they do make the elders really awesome. In my ideal version of The Sims, all age groups would be fun to play as in their own ways, and not just have like one or two features that make them stand out, but just have like a whole bunch of things that really make each age group stand out and be fun to play as. So it's not like when you get to a certain life stage, it's like, oh, there we go, it's that life stage, can we just speed through this process, please? Like, I don't want a life simulator to feel like that at any point. I think what they did with improving toddlers in The Sims 4 was a definite step in the right direction, and having those character values from toddlers to teenagers also, I think, really added more depth to the gameplay and really made those earlier stages of life feel like they actually matter a whole lot more. Maybe depending on what you accomplish in life before becoming an elder, you can unlock a certain heirloom, like The Sims Mobile sort of, but not exactly the same. So then you could pass off those heirlooms to your descendants and they can hold on to them, and then it's just like a unique sort of collectible that you can have around the house, aside from like the normal stuff that you can already get, like the My Sims trophies and snow globes and posters and that sort of stuff. We also have a question in regards to culture in The Sims 4. So Yang Young says, wondering why there still aren't any kilts in The Sims 4. And Grant says, we're always trying to dabble in different cultures and create fresh, relevant clothing styles. I'd say that if we have to spend a precious asset on something, generally kilts aren't super broadly applicable, but I'll never say never. It's a tough asset to tie into a theme. I've never really used kilts in The Sims, so I honestly haven't really cared that we don't have kilts in the game. But yeah, I don't think it would be very easy to fit into The Sims 4 unless maybe they did a specific world that was based off of Scotland. But I don't know, I have my doubts, because Windenburg, I think, was just supposed to be the all-Europe encompassing sort of world for The Sims 4, so I feel like Windenburg reduces the chances of a Scotland-inspired world to happen. But if there is some sort of theme that works with Scotland that hasn't already been done in The Sims 4, then I guess it could happen, but yeah, I personally don't really see it happening anytime soon. And just to end things on a funny note, Tazreen asks, choose your fighter, new Yeti costume or the bear? And Grad says, bear, always bear, bear now and forever. The bear is the single best thing I can point to that I contributed to on TS4. It is the best thing I've done in my 13-year career. Personally, I can't really say for sure just yet because I haven't actually played with the Yeti costume because, well, it's not out at the time of making this video. But I'll always have a soft spot for the bear, I'm sure. But I do have an interesting sort of idea, I think, to create a sim video revolving around the Yeti costume, but we'll just have to see how that pans out. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting sort of costume, especially now that we have seasons and winter in The Sims 4, it kind of makes sense to have it. But the real fight that I'm thinking about right now is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate coming out tonight. Am I right, folks? Yeah, I'm more than just a little bit excited for that game, but anyways, yeah, that wraps up another Sims info/thoughts video. So feel free to let me know in the comments section below your thoughts on all the stuff that I discussed in this SimGuru Q&A video. And be sure to leave a like or a comment or even subscribe because it lets me know that you like my channel, my videos, and it helps you keep up to date more easily with my latest content from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.